Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Redneckologist show. I'm Spur.
And I'm Coot.
And this is our 7th show, so it's July 2016, and this is going to go under the Campfire Talk segment.
Which means we're going to talk about nothing in particular, but maybe a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, and for this segment, I think we've got us about 3 topics picked out. One of them is going to be about changing the starter on our boat motor.
Little 35-horse Johnson.
And the next one topic's going to be about our cookout for the 4th of July.
Right.
And then if we have time, we're going to get into our discussion and thoughts about patriotism and the good old USA.
Yeah, now you're probably going to do another follow-up, too, on that starter, right, with pictures and everything.
Oh, yes. Yes, I am. And speaking of that, let's go ahead and talk about it a little bit. And yes, as Coot said, we are planning on doing a follow-up, so we're not going to get into grave detail on this one, but we will give you a few hints on it. But then we are going to record a shorter follow-up show that is going to have detailed instructions on how to change that starter. But before we get into that, let's talk about, I know we recorded on a previous show, we talked about the oil and gas mix. And right. I read something somewhere that said if you put too much oil in the gas, that it can put a strain on your motor.
And we made the mistake and did that too.
Coot, you mentioned before that it's too much compression.
Right, too much oil in that gas will cause a lot of compression on that piston when it comes up. And I know when you do a chainsaw that away, the best thing you can do is dump all that mess out and get the right mix and pour it back in your gas tank. Right.
Now, I'm not saying that we're thinning it below the recommendation. We are actually staying right on or just above the recommendation, but we had miscalculated how much gas our tank would hold, and so we put the oil in first, and it was way too much oil.
Yeah, we won't make that mistake again.
No. So we were talking about we had several ounces too much, but you know, still, if you're going to pump, I would suggest pumping right on the gallon and try to stop it as close as you can to an even gallon, and then look at that chart on that oil. I'll buy it by the gallon, and so it has a chart on it, 50 to 1, and so you just look at that and say, hey, that's how many ounces I need, and get you a measuring cup.
I know when that motor was cold along about that time, it was pretty sluggish about starting, and we put a different battery on there and made sure we charged the battery each time before we went fishing, the starting battery, that is. It just got from bad to worse, and finally we got out there one day and it just wouldn't start at all with that electric starter.
Yeah, and also on that follow-up video, I will tell you exactly, give you the link to the starter that I purchased, and it's a 1982 35-horse Johnson, but it's a Mercury Johnson, same stuff, and this starter will work on a whole bunch of different models that's under 50 horse. And you can, guess where I bought it? Amazon.
Yeah.
You know, I love Amazon. And it came in, and I was kind of worried about it, but the pictures looked exactly right. And there is a bracket on there with a few bolts holding it down to the motor, but pretty easy. You know, Coot had it off there while I was gone, and then when I got back, we put the new starter on there together.
Then you just take that bracket and take the old starter off and hook your new starter to it, tighten it up, and then you put the bracket back on the motor and you're ready to wheel.
Yeah, and we'll show you pictures of it on that follow-up show. But, man, did we have some good steaks.
Oh, yeah. 4th of July. That was Monday. Well, Sunday, our temperature out here dropped to 88 degrees, so we went on and built a fire in the tractor rim. And I kind of laughed and joked about that, the temperature dropping to 88. But the reason we built that fire on Sunday evening was so that we would have some live coals in there on Monday morning. That's when we actually cooked the steaks.
Right. Oh, and if you don't know about the tractor rim, if you haven't watched the previous show, please go back and watch the episode called Beer and Fire. And we talk about building, using a tractor rim and building a crossbar for the top of it to hold the boards up. We also had an expanded metal piece that we cut to fit the top of that thing and put a couple of handles on it as a cooking surface.
Oh, we've had all kind of brats and burgers and everything, and even other steaks cooked on there.
Absolutely. And so what we did, and like I said, go back and watch that episode and you'll see about the tractor rim. But what we did was we got a good fire going in that tractor rim, and I built it up. And while I was doing that, Coot went down and built a fire in that firebox on a new smoker pit grill we bought.
Right, yeah.
And so I got those flames going really good, and I put that expanded metal on there. Now, before we get into throwing them on the grill, let me explain to you that these were 2-inch thick Porterhouse steaks. We had 9 pounds of beef out of 3 steaks.
Boy, that's a big old steak.
That is a huge steak, 3 pounds apiece. So it was hard. You wasn't going to cook them all the way through on that thing. So I threw them on there and fired them up and got them really grill marked on both sides really well. Moved them around a little bit, which only took about 10 minutes max altogether.
Got them seared real good.
Right, and it sealed those juices in. All we used on the outside of them was Montreal steak seasoning, just that dry stuff you sprinkle on.
Yep.
Kind of rubbed it in, and that was it, because this is a really good cut of beef, so we really wanted the flavor of the beef to come through, so we didn't soak it overnight in any type of marinade. But anyway, we got those done, and then I carried them down, and we put them on the smoker. And the smoker pit, at the time we put them on there, it was around 250 degrees.
Right.
And it was smoking good. And what else do you have on there?
We had oiled and salted some Irish potatoes, those white potatoes, and had them wrapped up in tin foil. And I got them on just as soon as the lighter fluid burned out in the charcoal. The reason I started with charcoal is you can just lay wood in there then and keep your fire going with wood. And we also had a small aluminum pan with some seasoned sliced onions and squash and whatever,
Bell pepper.
right, laying in that pan. And we smoked those, and we had the potatoes in there about 2 hours, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah, they were. And I want to talk about the smoker pit right quick, because a lot of people have a misconception about it, or they get the wrong thing, or they just don't know what they're looking for. Let me explain something about buying a smoker. Now, we do not have a $2,000, $3,000 smoker.
No.
Okay, we've got the cheaper one, but it was, what was it, 400?
Something like that.
And we wanted a little bit bigger one. But the things to look for, and ours could be a little bit better. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but the things that I look for are, there's a heat shield in between your firebox and the regular smoker.
Right.
Part of it, the big barrel. And that heat shield is a slanted plate that allows you to build an actual fire and keep flames on that wood. Because when wood smolders and the flames go out, it releases creosotes, and those it makes a really bitter smoke. So if you're smoking things and you're letting stuff just sit there and smolder without a flame, and if your wife complains or kids complain, oh, that's bitter, that's too smoky, I don't like it, it's because you don't have a good flame going.
Yeah, you got too much of that creosote on there. And these little old cheap cookers, now you can buy those things with the firebox on the side and all for what, $100 to $75 to $150, but you better figure you out some kind of heat shield.
Yeah, and you can take a cookie sheet, a cheapest one you can find at Walmart if yours doesn't have it, and just lay it over there and figure out some way to keep it where it'll stand up at an angle between that box, the firebox, and the smoker barrel. And it's not perfect, because we did put the baked potatoes down right by the heat shield, and we put the veggies all the way down on the other end.
Right, and the steaks in the middle.
Right. And so you're going to have some heat variance in there. There's no way around it. But it will drastically reduce that if you have that heat shield in there.
Well, the reason we wanted to put those steaks in that thing was we tried last year on some identical steaks, cooking them on that tractor rim, and you just cannot help but you're going to have rare steak in the middle.
Well, and it was beyond rare. It was, I think it was trying to horn us as we were trying to cut it.
It was pretty rough if you don't like a rare steak.
You're right. And so we, now let me talk about the one other feature of a firebox or a smoke pit. You want your smoke stack down low on the barrel. You don't want it up on the lid. A lot of these cheap smokers, you go look at there's a smoke stack up there on there, and it's hooked to the lid. Well, that's right up top, on top of the grill. So all your smoke's coming out of your smoker box, rolling across the top of that thing. And if you don't know smoke rises, you've never been in a house fire or ever seen one on TV, because smoke's going to go up.
Yeah, the heat makes it rise.
Right, and so it goes up to the top and goes over and rolls right out the smokestack. So you want that smokestack down lower. That way the smoke builds up in there and then has to go down to go out.
Right.
The other piece is a one that seals up pretty good. Like I said, ours isn't the best in the world. We didn't spend several $1,000s on this thing. We don't have a place to hook a water hose in to keep moisture in there to steam stuff with that smoke.
Right.
We could get creative and set a pan of water in there or whatever, close on the rack above the wood. Of course, you got to check it every once in a while, and you got to put more water in it and all that stuff. But if you have the big fancy one with the water hose you can hook into it, of course, it's going to sit there and keep everything really moist. We don't have that. We also don't have one where the lid comes down and turns under and makes an indentation, and then the barrel part that the lid sets on comes up and makes an opposite indentation. And they when they go together, they just fit like a glove. Ours is a single sheet that comes down, but it fits pretty good.
Yeah, now, on our cooker part, it seems like it seals off very well. And then down on the firebox end of it, the lid on that thing, it doesn't seal off that good. But remember this, you've got to have air coming into that firebox, and we've got a vent, down low. And I bought a cooker one time, it had a vent up real high on the firebox, and it had a lid down there at the bottom. So I cut a hole out in that lid and put me a vent down there, because that top vent wasn't doing a thing. It wasn't letting any air get under that fire. But the lid on the firebox doesn't close that well. But what the hey, because you got to have air getting in there to keep that fire going.
Yeah, and we're talking about, it's got a little tiny gap on the corner of less than 1/4 of an inch probably, or right at 1/4 of an inch maybe at one spot, which is no big deal. But if you're going to look for one, they're not all going to seal up, the cheaper ones. If you're trying to save, and only spend $300-400, just check the lids, because they're not all going to be exactly identical. They might be the same brand, they might be everything, but those things are put together by hand a lot of times and hand welded. Check those lids and make sure they're not warped or anything like that.
Yeah, if you get one, you have to beat it out with a hammer to get it closed down good, or 2 hammers or whatever. It's not going to look very good when you get through.
No, but as long as it works, we're redneck, right?
Yeah, we redneck.
Yep. So now let's talk about our mishap on the 4th of July. The mishap was, it's trial and error, and last year, like Coot said, we tried to cook the steaks just on the tractor rim, and that didn't work. Well, this year, we seared them on the tractor rim, and then we well overestimated how long they needed to be in that smoke box.
Right, but we were talking about 2-inch steaks too, so.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's trial and error, but next year we're going to have more. Well, if you undercook one, you can always throw it back in there, but these were good, they were wonderful, but they were a little overdone.
Yeah, and I always say I like mine a little more on the rare side. And I can eat it rare. Trust me. I can. It can sit there and turn around and moo at me, and I'll still.
I'm a lot better than I used to be.
But these were well done. Now they were juicy, and they were good because
they were delicious.
Yeah, we seared them and sealed the juices in, so they were juicy. And the closer, of course, you get to that bone, the better it was. And wow, those things.
We had them in there over an hour, didn't we?
Hour and a half.
Yeah. Next year, we're going to try 30 to 45 minutes and see what that looks like.
Yeah. We figured 30 minutes max.
Yeah, that should be pretty close to just right.
Now, of course, we'll have to fire up that box, the smoker, if we're going to do the potatoes the same way and leave them in there a lot longer.
Yeah, we can do that because we've got all worlds of wood out here, and all I need is a handful of charcoal to start that wood burning. Oh,
yeah, absolutely. And let's tell them, too. There was a couple of dead trees. They hadn't fallen yet, but they've been standing there a while, dead. And we're like, hey, we need to go get some wood, and it's like 100 degrees in Texas. So I was like, yeah, let me just grab his chainsaw, walk right over here, and cut these 2 dead ones down. And they were nice and seasoned already, nice and dead and dry. Cut them down right there, chopped them up, put them in the back of that 4-wheeler thing, and got them over there to the splitter. Boom.
Split them babies down. We had all kinds of wood.
Yep. Yeah, we had plenty of wood to make a fire that night, to have hot coals in the morning, to build it back up again, to sear the steaks, and we still have wood left over.
Now, we've got a big old mesquite tree, too, out close to one of the pasture fences. We got to go get part of it down. I mean, that's a golly whopper, and we got to get that thing cut. It's green right now, and I don't have any idea about how long you should dry that stuff, but I'm sure from one year to the next, it should be ready to cook with.
It will one half season, well, one winter, through the winter. If we can chop it down in the fall, it'll be ready in the spring. But you got to think too, if we're smoking, they don't have to be completely 100% dry.
No, and it don't have to be 100% mesquite.
No, it doesn't.
You can get you a good oak coal base going, and then just start throwing that dry mesquite in there and smoke your meats, your steaks, or whatever.
Of course, you put a little piece of wet wood on there. First thing it's going to do is fizzle and bubble out the end and dry itself out as
Right.
it's burning. But it's going to burn easier if it's drier. But yeah, I think if we chop it up and I want to get a cover. We don't have one right now where we're stacking wood, but I want to kind of build a little cover over that so that when it rains, we don't have to wait for the wood to dry out.
No, we'll have dry wood when we get ready to cook.
Yeah, because a lot of times we want to cook right after it rains, and it's easy to run out there. Well, hey, the rain's over. It's cool out here. Let's go cook something.
Yeah, and then your wood sopping wet.
Yeah, so we're going to have to do something about that, but we'll get it done.
We'll get her done.
Yeah, so we were going to talk a little bit, and we're running low on time here, but let's talk about the 4th of July. Let's talk about being born in the USA.
And our independence.
Now, of course, a lot of people say they're proud. Oh, I'm proud to be an American. Well, yeah, okay, that's fine. But, we're lucky. We really are.
Yep, we really are.
You had no control over where you were born, so why are you proud of that? Now I'm not saying don't have pride, and don't have a sense of patriotism. That's a wholly separate thing. But being proud of something is what you merit. That's what you've earned.
Right.
Now, if you're a proud American, that's fine. You kind of have earned the right to say, hey, you know what? I'm a proud American because I'm a contributing member of society. I love this country. I've served this country. I do, far more than what I see other people doing, and I have this patriotism and this pride. That's great. And so in some ways, I guess you kind of merited that a little bit, because of your actions. But it's mostly the way you were raised, and we're raised, a certain way down certain parts of the countries. But some people just don't have that. And I see these kids these days, they're growing up and they just don't have that sense of pride.
Yeah, if you're proud to be an American, then I'm not going to say don't fuss about how many taxes you have to pay, because, I believe that tax-paying deal could be more equal for the rich and the poor, and even the in-betweeners, the ones that make the mid-sized salaries. But still, at the same time, people know what taxes go for. It's to, help keep our freedom here in the United States by financing the armed forces.
Yeah, the armed forces, and a lot of the money does go there, and there's people, and I'm not going to dog anybody. I mean, if someone's cheating the system, I hope that we could find a way to, figure that out over time and maybe change things. But most of the people are not cheating the system. Most of the people need assistance, have assistance, and we live in such a strong nation that we should be able to help them out. Now if somebody keeps using and abusing, I'm not gonna get in that fight over that. I mean, I pay my set amount of taxes. This is what it is. It's bipartisan for the most part because they all vote on it. I mean, and it's who we elect and put in there. So I'm not going to squabble over whether someone's using a food stamps and shouldn't be. That's not my job. It's not my job. I don't have all the facts. I don't know these people. So if I see someone with it, I'm just going to say, hey, great, man, you live in America. Be proud of it.
And for the most part, the working people, of course, I'm retired now, and I've paid taxes all my life. Or, well, not all my life, but ever since I was working age. But I also paid in Social Security. So I'm not sitting up here thinking that I'm living off of the government. I'm living off money that I've paid in all my life. And I've worked for a man that was smart enough to have a retirement plan, so that I'm not filthy rich or anything like that, but me and Mom are gonna be comfortable for a few years.
Yeah, and getting back to my other point about being proud, because what I'm more proud of, more when I say I'm proud to be an American, what I'm really saying is, I'm proud of this country. I'm proud of where this country has gone. And if you look back and say, look, we were oppressed by England. It was religious oppression. It was all kinds of oppression going on. It was taxation beyond what we considered fair. And hell, most of our money was going back to England.
Right.
So we were like, hey, you know what? Screw you guys, man. We're going to do it on our own here. And from George Washington and forefathers on, man, we have come a long, long way. And I know that some people would disagree with me on this, but I just think certain belief systems out there that people have, even, and I'm not talking about just liberals, I'm talking about some conservatives as well. The belief systems that they have would create a worse society than what we live in, and there would be a little bit of anarchy going on.
Right.
So we have to have some set of rules. Now, the debate should be over what rules should we have, and I'm not going to get into that, but it is what it is. And if you want to change something, write to your congressman. Get yourself, write letters and petitions and get this stuff out there and make your voice heard. And it's fine if you just want to put a meme on Facebook, but that's not going to get anything done.
That's not going to get nothing done.
No, it's not. And, and it's okay. And it's okay to bitch, moan, and complain and all that. But just understand that to really, really get something done, there's avenues for us Americans to do that. Not just as individuals, but an individual has to start it. But then if you garner support and get enough signatures, man, you can get a lot done.
Oh, yeah. And don't expect to, have it done overnight. But remember, any good thing, no matter how long it takes, is worth waiting for.
And it's hard. It's hard to get done. And, our because America has come so far, we are very complex. And, of course, we have complex issues we're dealing with. I'm not going to get into those, but, you just look around, turn the news on, and, you'll hear them. And, of course, sensationalization of the news, and when you're listening to news, and I don't care which one it is. I don't care if it's Fox. I don't care if it's CNN. I don't care if it's CBS, Evening News, whatever it is. They're there to sell, okay? They have a product.
They've got to make their paycheck.
They do. And if they only report on things, never sensationalize anything, that would be a very boring newscast. And the entertainment, and I say the word entertainment and news at the same time. And if you don't believe me, well, that's your opinion. But news is entertaining.
Well,
it has entertainment value to it, and they play on that entertainment value to keep you watching. If you don't believe me about the entertainment value of your favorite news source, just try watching C-SPAN for 6 hours.
I don't guess I've ever watched it.
Well, that or that CCTV thing where they just put a closed caption junk in a courtroom.
Oh, okay.
And just sit there and watch the actual proceedings of government and courts and things like. You will scratch your eyeballs out from boredom.
It's kind of like watching a baseball game from about the third to the eighth inning.
I like baseball. Come on.
I do too, but it gets kind of boring sometimes.
Well, and what's bad about baseball? You know what? Where I like to watch baseball, and I know it's great to sit there in that stand, but again, we live in Texas. When it's 110 degrees where I'm sitting, and all I can think about is that sweat rolling down my ears and my back and my neck, and these guys are taking forever to get up here and hit. And I know they're hotter than I am because I'm just sitting still, but I'd rather be sitting in an air conditioner watching this stuff.
Yeah, we done got kind of soft because the last ball game we watched on TV was under the air conditioner.
Sure was. And
it felt good, too.
Yeah, we had it cranked down. Yeah, but it was humid outside. And then it was lucky because we watched the ball game, and I'll just go ahead and say it. I like watching the Yankees play because anybody that they play against, I like to root for whoever that is.
Yeah, we like to see the Yankees get beat.
Yes, I do. I love to watch the Yankees get beat. And so they were playing Cleveland, the Indians, and the Indians wouldn't cooperate with what we wanted.
They went into extra innings, but they still didn't cooperate.
But yeah, I mean, they were ahead of them for a little bit, and then, and then.
And it was late in the game, and we were sitting in here, and we heard that thunder. And by the time the game was over, we went back outside, and man, it was nice out there.
Oh, it was so nice. It was cool.
Yeah, we getting blessed with some little old cool spells every once in a while here in July.
Well, that tropical storm's over there off that Pacific coast, I think, somewhere. I haven't really looked at the radar, so I don't know exactly where it is, but I think we're getting some push, off of that.
Right. We don't get much rain here, and we didn't yesterday, but it kind of blew up, and that downdraft coming out of them thunderstorms, it just cools things off for miles all around. We did get some cool air, and we got a few drops of rain, but that's okay. We got the well pumping now.
Oh, yeah, we got a new well pump. Got to talk about that. We went to a large box lumber store that's not blue. Okay,
Kind of orange looking.
They're kind of orange looking, and they have in that store, that particular orange lumber store, or more than just lumber, but that's what I call it. They have a pump. It's a, what do you call it? Utility pump. That's what it is. Yeah. It's a utility pump. And
made solely for them, evidently.
Yes. A particular brand makes this just for the orange box store.
Right.
And you cannot get replacement parts for it. The only thing it points to is the orange box store, and that's it. Anytime you try to look up anything on it. Well, ours sucked up a rock from the bottom of the well. The screen detached.
Yeah, about 28 feet down there.
Yeah, and it sucked this rock up in there in that drum, and we couldn't get it working again. So now that pump was $320-something.
Right.
So I go to my favorite online store, which is Amazon, and we've said
I call it Amazon.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. Anyway, that's so I love Amazon, and I go on there and I'm looking up utility pump. I get 2 more horsepower, smooth, that thing
with a throttle
on it, and the other one didn't even have a throttle. It had a choke and an on-off. But this thing, you can throttle it back, you can push it up, you can, and it'll pump just as good. It pumps better, and it's 2 more horsepower. It was a 7.5 horsepower.
Yeah, and I run it about half throttle when I'm pumping.
Yeah, and we're pumping through and we put a new stop valve at the bottom with a good brass screen on it.
Right.
So we won't suck any more rocks up in there. So that thing, it limits the flow, and then we're pumping through 2-inch PVC down to 1 inch.
Yeah, and going
uphill,
50, 75 yards up a hill.
Yep.
And then over into our holding tanks.
Yeah. So
I'm sure the water company's coming by and seeing me water that garden, and they wondering where I'm getting that water because my bill hadn't went up.
Yeah, but that well is our well on our property, and we can get water out of there anytime we want to.
Right. As long as we can get that sucker to sucking.
Yeah. So, and this new valve we put on there, it seems to be staying prime better.
Oh, it does. When you go out there now, of course, like I said, the pump pulls the water up out of the well, and then it's pushing it uphill. And so when you turn that pump off, that check valve closes down at the bottom of that 2-inch pipe down in the bottom of the well, and that water just holds there. Now this winter, all this summer, and with the other pump, we had a water hose hooked into the pump. We would turn the hydrant on, crank it, and as soon as the pump primed, we would turn the hydrant off. Well, this here, I've completely unhooked the water hose, but I will have to do something this winter because I'll have to drain all the water out of the well if, it gets down cold enough, because I don't want that thing to freeze and bust.
Right. So we're running out of time, but I just want to say, look, before you run off to one of these little box store things that's national, that's either blue or orange, check Amazon first.
Yeah, just remember this lesson. We got 2 more horsepower, same pump and everything for a flat $100 bill less.
Smooth operator too. It's a better pump, way better pump. So, and if you ever have a problem finding what you need on Amazon or you're scared of it, you just message us and you let me help you look it up, because I have become a pro at that. I have found a starter for a Johnson motor. I have found a new utility pump. I have found so many things. And what I do is I just match up the parts off of Amazon, and then I go on Amazon and put in the numbers, and look at there. Amazing. There it is.
Where did you get our crossbows?
Amazon.
Okay.
Yeah. And they're great. So anyway, we're kind of out of time, but like I said, we're gonna hit you with that detailed how-to on the Johnson motor here in about a week or so. All right, but that's all the time we have. This is Spur.
This is Coot.
And please leave comments and suggestions below. If there's anything you want to hear, let us know. And please don't forget to subscribe.